Happy Valentine's Day, everyone, from George Minhalka, director of My Bloody Valentine. And you're listening to WithoutYourHead.com. And keep your head on and watch our movie again.
Welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neil. Terrible Troy, and I don't know. He'll be here eventually, I'm sure. But I'm joined by Drew Bolduc, writer and director of Assassinaut, which I get to see at Boston Underground Film Festival. It's very cool to have you here.
Oh, yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So give people an idea of what Assassinaut is about, if they're not aware yet.
It's like a science fiction horror movie with kids. It's like all the main characters are kids, and they get stranded on the alien planet. Yeah, it's kind of a weird movie. It's like if like David Lynch made a children's movie. That's a good way to start.
Yeah.
David Cronenberg.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So during the Q&A, you mentioned that like the reason why the kids have different color suits was originally it was more like a Power Rangers movie. So how different was like the original concept of the movie compared to what you made?
I think it was more. There's like a scene at the beginning, which is almost like there's like a kaiju alien battle, like big monster suits and stuff like that. And I think the original idea was just that. It's just like crazy, like there's like a little bit of that in the movie, but I just don't think we could have pulled it off with the budget that we had to do like that. Costumes, aliens. I think we got a lot in still, but yeah, I just think it was like a little bit too. I mean, it was already too. What's the word? Like ambitious for the budget that we had, like as it is. But I think the original idea was just even more with like probably giant robots. I mean, it was basically just. But I also think it would have been. More silly and stupid, and for whatever reason at the time, that's just not the kind of movie we wanted to make. You know, we didn't want to make something. We kind of wanted to get away, because a lot of the movies are kind of that way. So they kind of wanted to get away from that, and then the movie just sort of changed organically based on working on it, and it just became really just by the time we were done.
So so how long did it take to make? Because and how long did it even take to start to make it? Because you talk about different ideas you have. So how long did it go from just like the concept until you're actually making Assassinaut?
It's kind of a weird story in that like Michelle and the Dawn, the producers in that. And we wanted to work together on something. So I'd been working with Michelle for a couple of years, and so we knew we wanted to make something, but we didn't know exactly what it was going to be. And that was just one of the ideas that at the time it seemed like it would work. Like it kind of checked all the boxes and stuff that we wanted to do. And basically, the pre-production was super fast, like from writing to like getting everything ready and filming, and it was, I think I wrote the thing in like a month or maybe 2 months, and pre-production I think was maybe 2 or 3 months, and we started filming because we had to film in summer because they were kids, so like everything was like super rushed in the beginning. And then the movie took more time once we got into like post-production. Like we shot a little bit more, and then just everything took a long time. Like the visual effects took a while, and the editing, the sound, and the music, and all that stuff. So, and a lot of the reason it took long is just because our budget. We didn't have like a bunch of more money to throw at it, so things just sort of had to be done when they got finished. And ultimately, I think the longer that the movie spent in post, it just became a better movie by the time we got to the end.
Yeah. So how many how many other people were involved in like when you're starting to talk about the idea and creating the movie before you start casting it and everything?
I mean, it was basically Michelle and Barry, the producer, and Don Ball, the other producer, and Don's brother, Suman, and that was, and then we brought other people on, like the director of photography, Cooney, and we had our art director, Chris Nichols, and there were some other people, like working on it, like, we had like, basically it was a lot of it was art department stuff, and it was like casting, we had a casting director that helped cast the movie, based out of Virginia, and, but relatively speaking, it was like a fairly small crew, but a lot of people did come and help, in those initial stages, like preparing everything, like the costumes, the props, and things like that. Just, a big thing about the movie is the locations. So, like, we had to do a lot of location scouting and find a lot of places, that could, like, work for, I think the hardest thing was there's, like, a space station. And we ended up using a battleship that had been, like, decommissioned. It was like a Navy battleship, and it was like, if we didn't have that location, then movie really wouldn't work because we couldn't build a set that wouldn't look, really bad.
Yeah.
So like, it just really relied on that specific set.
Yeah. I just wonder, where does one find an 80s battleship?
In Norfolk, Virginia, there's this museum called Nauticus. And my guess is it's sort of like a big military area. It used to be owned by the military, but like I think like a week before, not a week, but it was like a short time before we started filming, it actually became like a public city-owned thing. It was no longer owned by the military anymore. So I think if that hadn't happened, we probably would have never used it. But yeah, there's some cities where they have that, like, and it's probably like, I don't know, like ways of getting people interested in the military or propaganda for like young kids. Oh, come look at the military ship or whatever. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, it's definitely like, I love that style of the design, that industrial design, like the military industrial design. I think is really, I don't know. I think science fiction movies don't really utilize that as much, like utilitarian design, also like brutalist architecture design and things like that. So I think it looks really cool, and I feel like the super slick
Terrible Troy is here now, I believe.
I am indeed.
All right, excellent.
Hello.
Excellent.
How you doing?
Good.
So, well, is it hard to cast? Because honestly, the kids are very good in the movie, and sometimes kids aren't very good in movies. So, was it hard to find kids who were right for the movie?
I mean, this movie definitely had to do like a lot more casting work, and look a lot more people. I think we did like a backstage post and like all the kind of casting. Definitely like much more substantial casting process than my other movies. Like would be like Craigslist or just people that we knew. But I mean, honestly, like the kids. It's sort of like the way I kind of think about it is like, it's just like if the essence of the character is just within the kid, then it'll work. And like the kids that we cast are just, they're all like really, really good. And like they knew all their lines. They're basically professionals. They were professionals in a way when we hired them. Not that they had all done a lot of work, but they just knew what they were doing. And, in acting, it's one of those things where I think it's like sometimes it's a skill that's just innate, that someone just has the ability to do it, and I really didn't have to do, as a director, I didn't really have to do that much work. But I think with kids, I think their parents are a really important part of the process. Like if they're under 18, like they have to be involved and they have to be on set. So like, you know, you have to like keep that in mind when you're casting, because like if the parents are going to be a hard time, then you could completely shut the movie down. So like, you know, the parents are like super supportive and they're super helpful and like looking after all the kids. So like, you know, we kind of knew what to look for, because Michelle and I had produced a short film with kids before, and we learned a lot from doing that. So we kind of just applied those things to this movie.
Yeah. Not to spoil the movie, but some of the children die off. Not the actors, the characters in the movie. And have you had any negative feedback or surprise or reactions or anything like that when you're showing the movies at festivals?
Not yet. I think it's funny, like even like people that don't like the movie as much as other people like that about it. So it's only kind of been positive feedback so far. I am interested for more people to see it and get like a wider net of what people think about it. For me, it was just sort of like this. I mean, I guess on one level it's like a hook, but some people like, you know, like crossing that line that you're not supposed to cross. But I you know, I think in the 80s in particular, there were a lot of movies where there's like violence towards kids, or even like Jaws is, I think, a really good example. Or I think our movie is a little bit more similar to Jaws 2 in the brutality of the killing of kids, because Jaws 2 is like, I kind of think about it later as like, oh, subconsciously I was maybe inspired by that movie. But yeah, it's like it's basically just a slasher movie compared to the first movie.
Yeah, with the shark.
Yeah, and so I think and then the 80s movies were just way more violent and way more gross, so we were just trying to do something like that. And I know there are people that just hate kids in movies too, so... Like,
or just say kids. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like whenever sometimes, you know, you see a kid after, especially if they're really bad, which we don't really want to.
Right.
No. It's like, oh, there doesn't have to be a kid in this movie.
But it does set it off from your expectations when you think, oh, you know, this is a setup of like, you know, maybe not coming of age, but, you know, young kids caught in a predicament, and you expect, you know, a certain thing to happen, but it doesn't. So it and all of them are likable, so it does add a lot when some of them die.
Yeah, I think for me it's hard. Yeah, it's hard for me to really know, because as I wrote it, it doesn't really affect me, because you know, like I know it's going to happen the whole time. So yeah, I do wonder what people like, where it just comes and it happens. Like, I don't know. I'm sure it could possibly traumatize certain people to watch the movies, but especially if they're too young to be watching it. So, it'll be interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what more people's reactions are.
So, how did the? I'm sorry.
Oh, like one of the things we talked about was like Never-Ending Story, and there's like the scene where the horse dies, and that's got to be one of the most brutal deaths in any movie, and it's like a kid's movie. But I mean, what moment in any movie is really as deeply about mortality as that scene? Like, where you really have to confront that, and it's like kids and animals, like that affects people way more than anything else, I think.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen The Bridge to Terabithia or ever read the book, but that's another one. When the girl dies, it's like the most depressing thing, and then the boy blames himself, and like I said, it's a kid's movie, but it's really heartbreaking. It's very depressing.
I think there was like a TV movie of that, and I remember watching that at school, and yeah, definitely I remember it to this day. It's very brutal.
And the bees, and My Girl, when the kid gets stung to death by the bees. Another. So how did the screening go at Buff at Boston Underground Film Festival? How did you think it went?
I think it went well. I feel good about it. Because that was sort of like one of the first screenings that I've been to where there was like a decent amount of people there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like in a screening, it's like you can tell the moments that work because there's like audible sounds or people laugh, things like that. And it's like, you know, regardless of what people think, it's like, you know, just by watching other people that it works or not, you know, just by the sounds that they make. So I think that's the best part about showing, you know, in a group of people in a screening. But yeah, now that we've shown it once, I like feel good about it. But because it hadn't been shown for so long, I was like, I don't really know what this movie is anymore, or what we made. It just became so abstracted. So I definitely feel good about it.
Yeah. Do you do the editing?
Yeah, I edited it, and then there's another editor, Mike Lane. He's actually from Canada, who also edited it as well. But I did like the initial pass, and just because it's always what I've done. I've always edited my own things, but it's also good to get other people's perspectives too. And he definitely brought a lot to certain scenes and the order of things. So I definitely recommend working with other editors as well.
So I mentioned the kids, but Vito is great too as the commander. Where did you find him for the movie? I've seen him in Bloody Banjo. He's really good in that too. But did you know him beforehand?
I met him, I think it was like 2012 on it's a Troma movie, Return to Nakum High, which became two movies, Return to Nakum High Volume 1, Volume 2. But originally it was only one movie. And so like I worked on special effects, and a lot of the effects were actually in the second half. So I honestly think it came out like that maybe a year ago, I think. So it was like a big, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, we met on that movie, and I don't know, I just liked him, and he was one of the Cretans in that movie, so like he's just completely over the top and crazy. And you know, I seem like a calm person, but I definitely have like anger in me, and like there's something about Vito where he can just channel anger in a performance so well, and I just loved it. And so I made this other movie called Science Team, and I casted him in that movie. And that movie, the character that he was supposed to be, I think, was more of just like a normal person that's not completely insane and crazy. But like in his audition, I think they filmed it in the Troma office in New York, and like in the audition, there's like he had these like pieces of wood set up, and like at the end of the scene, it was like an argument scene, and he just starts breaking all their stuff in the audition, like throwing wood around. I was like, I don't know what that is. Like, it's definitely not what I thought this was going to be, but I like it. And so basically, that character completely changed. And that's a weird movie because it's basically him and a lot of the other characters are always just super angry and yelling and screaming. And I would just like, when it was filming, I would just be laughing so hard and crying. And I don't know if anybody thinks it's funny, but to me, it's so funny. But Vito is also like one of the nicest people that I know. And he's actually a really nice guy. But I think they say like the nicest people as actors they play the villain. And I do really want to cast him at some point as a non-crazy person or a villain or a monster. But for now, I mean, he's just really good at it. And he's like super creative. And in Science Team in particular, he did a lot of he did a lot of stunts and like jumping out of windows, and there's like a whole chase scene in the woods where he's like running around completely barefooted, and things you really shouldn't do, like, you know, so easy to get hurt doing that kind of stuff. But I mean, he's just that into it, and you know, I mean, he would definitely make a great like action. Yeah.
Yeah. Was he cool with the makeup? Because you know, in the movie, progressively he has more and more.
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to ask him specifically if it was awful. But a lot of the parts where he sort of, I mean, I guess we're definitely giving away some spoilers, but he sort of changes. But it's in the trailer too, actually. But he, a lot of it, we kind of tried to show less and less. We tried to kind of like slowly show it. So I think there's a little bit less. He's not wearing as much as you think, I think, for a lot of it. And then there's definitely the end of the movie, a lot of the stops and do like straight monster, crazy face melt stuff, which is the craziest effects work I've ever seen, because he basically did, it was like a 3-stage face melt, and like, you know, like bladders, like air bladder, common bladders, that have like the pus and all that stuff. And basically he did it on the fly. Like he had this like mold that he worked from, but he would just create it in pieces. It was almost like watching someone paint with special effects. And he did the 3 stages, and he like just created it basically out of nothing in one day. And I mean, you definitely have to ask Vito, but I'm sure it was pretty uncomfortable to have that much stuff put on you, on your face.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I know you do special effects. Which came first? Were you into special effects or making movies, or was it just kind of all the same?
I think it was, well, when I was a kid, the first thing I was interested with movies was special effects. Mm-hmm. Just because it's like the coolest. I think it's the coolest thing, particularly practical effects and things like that. But then I wanted to, I guess, write movies. And so with the Taint, that was really where I started doing effects. You know, the co-director said, it was all going to be specifically incorporating it. Basically, we had some names, so we just had to let it. And then they asked me to work on it. Troma also distributed the Taint as well. So that's sort of how I got into it. And then there was a couple different effects people that worked on Assassinaut. I definitely didn't do as much as I've done in other movies. But there's basically 3 different teams that did various things for that movie. It was Jim O'Hala did like the giant monster suit at the beginning, and then Shane did the kind of like the stomach getting cut open. And then my friend Ken Hicks did like this big alien stomach sequence towards the end. And I helped do that as well. But yeah, this movie I was a little bit less involved, but it was just such a bigger production. We needed more people doing different things. But but yeah, it was sort of just, it was out of necessity where I got into it. And definitely the stuff in the Taint is very low rent effects, but we made it work pretty well. Yeah. And then when I started for Troma, that's when I got into like mold making and actually making like sculpting stuff out of clay and doing it that way.
Mm-hmm. I have the Taint T-shirt. Mike Terry, listener of the show, sent it to me, and I'm a big fan of the movie. And so I was wearing it. I wore it all day when we were in the Catskills, and I was stone carving with Kevin Van Hentenryck from Basket Case fame, who now is a stone carver. But anyway, so we're in all day. We went out to eat, and it wasn't until after we were done eating that I looked down and I noticed that it wasn't just the pink skull, but it was made out of cock and balls. I was like, oh, that's probably not an appropriate shirt to be wearing.
Yeah, you're definitely not the only person who said that. I think that happens a decent amount. People don't even know.
Mm-hmm. I love it. But yeah. What is your opinion of work with Troma? Because we have a lot of people on who's with Troma, and it's some people have very positive things to say, and some people have very negative things to say. So I'm always interested in your experience with Troma.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a cult in a way. When you're like working, I think it's different if you're not working on one of their productions. Like I wouldn't. If they're only dealing with Troma in passing, it's not the same as like if you're in it, like you're in the. You go all the way. So if you work on one of the features, basically, it's cool in a way because like before then, I always felt like if I came to New York, I always had a place to stay because I met so many people working on the Troma movie and it's like, it's true in a lot of movies where when you work on them, it's such an intense experience that you end up having these like really crazy bonds with people and this shared experience. So like, people that I work with on the movie, I'm like still friends to this day. And so like a lot of really positive things are coming out working with Troma, and it was important for that kind of pressure for the first time, just for them working on your own stuff. At the same time, it's chaos, and I love Troma, but it's also like I do wish that they would reach a little further sometimes, and maybe try to make a little bit better movies sometimes, but it's not really what they do. It's not really what they're good at. Mm-hmm. It's frustrating when you're really trying something good, and at the end of the day, you're working on a Troma movie. Though I do think Troma movies are good, but
I grew up watching them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was important.
But how about having your movie distributed by Troma? What was that experience like?
And distributing the movie ourselves initially, and we hadn't already made money by the time Troma distributed us, and they actually gave us an advance, which I don't think they do. I'm not sure if anybody is getting an advance from them these days. So it was good for us. And I do think they kind of kept the movie out there and kept putting it out. They're still selling them. I think ultimately the movie kind of might have disappeared a little bit quicker. Stayed, in certain people's consciousness. I didn't expect that much money. So if you're looking for money, the thing about Troma and all of this, they're very honest about all of this. They don't say anything other than we're probably not going to get any money, and working on our movies is very difficult. They're very upfront about it. So I feel like it's hard. The people that have a vendetta against them, it's I don't know. They kind of told you ahead of time, and so it's the nature of the company.
From the different interviews I've done, to me it seems like people who go in thinking they are going to make a lot of money from Troma are the ones that have the bad experiences, and the people who go in with that not really being a concern. Because when I had Liam Regan on, who did My Bloody Banjo, he talked that really was it was his film school working on movie you just mentioned, the Troma movie anyway. Return to Nukem High. He said, just being on set was like film school to him. So to me, it really depends on how you look at it. At least that's how I see it from different people that we've had on the show.
I've learned how to say no. So if it's any production, not just Troma. If it's just I don't have enough time, or if it's not enough money to justify the time, I just say no. I'm just you know what, I'm going to just enjoy my life a little bit. I think when you're younger, that's the time to have those experiences.
Sure.
Because like when I talk about experience, it's like this endless well of insane stories. Like we were living in like an abandoned funeral home that was infested with spiders. Like it was, I was working out of the embalming room. That's where the effects. And apparently that funeral home was once owned by the mob, because like it was in Niagara Falls, which is apparently like a really big mob town. Where it was at some point, maybe I'm not sure if it still is, but that was where they disposed all of the bodies. Was in that, and but honestly, I don't believe that place was haunted, because I slept there enough times to know that it had no paranormal experiences there. So. But yeah, it was a crazy experience. But yeah, they were actually shooting. They shot a new movie, The Shitstorm, last summer, and I helped do one effect for that. It was like we recreated in The Shining. There's like the elevator shot, the blood that comes out.
Right.
And so we created a model for that, but instead of blood, it's just a bunch of shit that comes out. So I helped do that, but. As far as working on the movie itself, I'm a little too old to be doing another Troma movie, if that makes sense. Like I'm gonna take the summer off and just enjoy myself. So.
Well, apparently that's going to be his last movie, Lloyd Kaufman, as a director. Let's see.
It could be. So you gotta see it when it comes out, because it might be. Yeah. The only one.
Yeah, I'm looking.
I have a feeling. I've heard good things about it, though. The people that are working on it, they feel really good about it. So I think it's going to be pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this true story. When I interviewed Lloyd at the Return to Nukem High Volume 1 premiere video, and he kept telling me to watch The Taint. So he really put the movie over. That's actually why I went and watched The Taint. That's how I heard about it. So.
Yeah, he's definitely
he's very supportive of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the thing with like working with him and working with any distributor. Like, you can tell if they actually care or not, if they're passionate about your movie. And I think that's the most important thing. Like, sometimes over money, because like, you know, anytime I go to a convention and Troma's there, like they have The Taint there, they're selling that movie. So it's like, it's definitely getting out there, because it's like at some point as a filmmaker, like I see it happen with a lot of independent filmmakers, is they end up becoming salesmen more than filmmakers. Like, so they're hawking a product and they're selling stuff, and it's like, it's not really what I can do. Like, I don't like to man a booth and, you know, talk to people and sell stuff. But, you know, for them to do it, it definitely because like I wouldn't be doing it. So I feel like that movie definitely might have, if it wasn't for Troma, it might have kind of disappeared a little bit more. Maybe not. It's hard to know. But yeah, I think if you're ever going to work with anybody, it's like, it's important that they're passionate about what they're doing. It's pretty easy to tell when no one cares. Or they're just like, give me your movie. And they're not particularly, you know, you need to convince, you got to wine and dine someone a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it is a perfect movie for them. It's like a perfect Troma movie.
It is. Yeah, yeah, definitely. So with Assassinaut, I know now it's just starting at the festivals, but you know, what are your plans for it? Where do you hope it goes from the festivals?
We're talking to a distributor, and I don't know if I can say specifically, but I think we're going to get a distributor really soon. I'm not sure if paperwork has been signed or whatever, so that's probably going to happen. And then, I mean, it's you know, it's a lower budget independent film, so we definitely see like video on demand as like the main and most important thing, because I feel like that's just how people watch movies these days for the most part. And there's still going to be festival screenings, and there's still going to be some theatrical screenings. But, you know, we just know that the business is changing, and that's really, you know, if they can get the movie out there and video on demand, that's just as important. And I actually do think they're going to do a Blu-ray as well. So there's going to be like physical media too. but yeah, I mean, basically just try to get, people to see it, as many people as are able to see it. So,
for an independent filmmaker, you mentioned video on demand, but how important are like all the streaming sites, Shudder and Hulu and Tubi is a new one, all those things? Like, how important are they for an independent filmmaker?
I think they're really important now, if not maybe the most important, particularly if you don't have like backing from because to do a theatrical run, it's just so expensive. Mm-hmm. So unless you have like a big company behind you, it's basically that's off the table. But it's kind of like the video, video stores or like VHS in the past. It's basically it's like a whole other market. So, I mean, I know that's a lot of how I watch movies now. I guess that's kind of lame, but I think it's becoming the norm for the most part. I mean, it would be better for people to not watch a movie on a phone, but even then, it's sort of like, well, if they're taking the time to watch the movie, I mean, I'm not a stickler about how people watch it, if they're going to watch it, But ideally, I mean, it was honestly seeing it at the Boston Underground Film Festival, it looks really good on a big screen. And so I do recommend people that see it if they can, but I feel like a majority of people probably won't have that option for the most part,
Yeah. Have you been to Buff before?
No, I don't.
Was that your first?
No, I had never gone. Yeah, that's the first time. Yeah.
How about what are your opinions of film festivals themselves? Because honestly, some people we have on, independent filmmakers, they love them, and we've had people on who said, they're a waste of money. And so, what do you think of the film festivals?
It's a weird thing because it's like, I mean, they're great when you play them, especially if it's done by a good festival that does a really good job, and there's a lot of people at the screenings. Like, great. But I've also been to some where, not on this movie because clearly it hasn't played that many places yet, but where there's like nobody at the screening and there's like 5 people, and then you're like, but I mean, it's kind of, the writing is generally on the wall before you even go. So it's pretty easy to tell if, how well a festival is run or not. I do think it's probably better to not send to too many festivals and spend a ton of money. Because even these no-name festivals charge like $50, which I think, I feel like the idea of $50 is kind of a ripoff, is my honest opinion. I do think there should be almost like a tax bracket for how much you have to pay to these festivals, honestly. Because if you made your movie for $5,000, $50 is a lot of money. Yeah. It's like a huge, almost like and I do think they're but for a bigger studio movie or a bigger independent production company, $50 isn't that big of a deal, So, or sometimes it's even more if sometimes $65, whatever. But yeah, I do think, depending on what your movie is, you have to apply to festivals that are right for your film. In this movie, we applied to the bigger ones just because, we thought that, we had a chance of some kind. So we did Sundance, but even though the odds are really low and some of the other ones that are like that, but it's kind of like your movie, every film festival kind of has a brand and they kind of know what they're looking for. So I recommend that people apply to what feels right to their movie versus everything, because it's really not going to do you any favors to apply to 100 festivals or 50 festivals. But I think maybe 10 or 20 if you really have the money. It's probably a good bet. And then just don't apply to ones that are kind of lame and uptight. If you make a crazy genre movie, it's you're just wasting your money, Yeah. But I think they're good. I do think people that grew up in a certain generation, particularly in the 90s, that's where like film festival culture really went crazy. And so people kind of started to believe in this myth. I think it's a myth where it's like, you're going to play at a festival, and someone's going to see your movie, and then you're going to be famous, and your movie is going to get released, someone's going to buy it, and you're going to make a bunch of money. Like Kevin Smith, I think, is the great example. But like, the odds that's going to happen to any of us is basically zero, especially nowadays, because there's so much content. But I really do feel people still believe in that you're going to be found at a film festival. And I think sometimes it does happen, and it does lead. Just going to film festivals, even if they're not huge, like, it does lead to. I think the best part about them is these are basically your peers. So these are also people that have devoted their lives to film and making films. So they're really the people that you relate to the most in the world of making movies. Like, so if you go to them and you don't take advantage of those opportunities, then you're kind of, you're shooting yourself in the foot. If you're like, or if you treat it like a competition, or I don't know, or if you go and you want to win or whatever the awards are, it's like, it's not really what it's about. I mean, just getting your movie shown is a big deal. So
yeah, I think it's a good attitude to have. So when you said when you're a kid you really noticed the special effects first, what were some of the movies that like are examples of like, hey, that's really cool, and eventually I'd like to make that?
I really liked the first Indiana Jones movie. There's like the face melt. There's a lot of gore in that movie. Like,
yeah, there is.
Even Spielberg actually in his older movies is like they're really brutal, and he also did a lot of violence towards kids too. So there was that. I mean, Ghostbusters I really liked. But there used to be this show on the Discovery Channel called Movie Magic, and that was a show about just like behind the scenes of special effects of movies. And so I think seeing that when I was younger was really important, because it just opened my mind to like, oh, this is how these things are made. And like stop motion, I mean, there's like the Ray Harryhausen movies were really cool. Like it was really awesome.
Yeah.
And that stuff holds up really well too. Like,
I agree. I still think the skeleton scene from Jason the Argonauts is still one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah, Jason the Argonauts that's a great movie. And I mean, the Medusa character is insane too. That thing is ridiculous. like all the snakes moving and everything.
Yeah.
It was great. It was really, he was literally like a one-man show. I think that was the thing about stop motion, is it's a lot of times it's like one person doing it. It is interesting that people are still doing stop motion too. Like there's still features coming out that are doing it. The technology has gotten really amazing too, where there's no seams. I think they do the 3D printed faces now. There's no seams, so it's like it almost looks like it's CGI because it's so seamless. But
right,
pretty great. I would like to do it, but I don't have the patience to do it. It's too hard.
yeah. I could see that. It would be I thought I'd just do it for fun, but it was kind of the same idea. It was like take hours to do like a second.
If it's short, but it's not that long. I think it's worth doing. Of course, the Phil Tippett, who did RoboCop, the Ed 209 character, like that's such a great character. I do think something is definitely lost, that stop motion is no longer used on a large scale, but you can't really compete with CGI.
Yeah. So you use some CGI in Assassinaut for like the outer space stuff?
Yeah. The visual effects supervisor, his name is Mark Lambert, and he actually worked on like the first Power Rangers movie with the one that had CGI in it, and he actually did some Hollywood movies. I think he worked on Harry Potter, the first Harry Potter movie. He's like an older guy, and he just happened to be in Virginia and Richmond, and he still does like a lot of visual effects supervision on TV shows and things when he travels. So it just kind of, we had like a event and I just met him there. And honestly, for the space station sequence, we were going to use a model, was the original plan. And he was like, "You sure you want to use the model? You sure you want to go down that path?" And then, so he did like a test and he just sent it, and it was like immediate. It was almost like one of the shots that's in the movie. It was already at that level. And we were just like, okay, yeah, I guess that'll work. Like, it was just immediately too good. And I mean, I'm not again, because as much as I like practical effects, I know people a lot of time will take the time to trash CGI, but I feel like CGI is just getting so good, particularly with some of the simulation effects that they can do, like destroying buildings and like, you know. Even the stuff that was like in the Avengers movie, like Age of Ultron, like some of that stuff looks so good, and I think it's getting to the point where it's gonna be photorealistic, and there's not gonna be any question, you know. And I don't think the arguments against it will really hold up anymore. But at the same time, I think especially the practical effects, like the art is going to be lost to some degree because of that, which sucks. But I think there's always a place in movies for it, you know, where it's better, particularly with like performances, you know, getting acting along with, you know, I mean, even though they do motion capture, but I still think like, especially with gore, I think gore is the thing where
you can always
the practical is better. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the same time, you know, like a fake head always looks like a fake head. But, you know, I mean, I love Total Recall, and those fake heads in that movie are so
when the eyes are up. So,
they're so well done. But they're fake heads. Like,
for that.
Yeah, like, it's clear that they're not real, but that's kind of why it's amazing.
Yeah, I will say this. I always think, like, bad practical effects still have they're still cool, where bad CGI does just look bad. Yeah,
it's true. And with CGI, it's like, it's still all about how much time do they have to put. So it's like, if you talk to a CGI artist who worked on a movie that kind of looks like shit, they'll just tell you, yeah, we literally have the money, time to look good. So a lot of it has to do with resource management, where every shot in a movie is CGI. It's like really hard to make them all look good. But I feel the same way about, like, you know, with genre movies, like a bad horror movie is infinitely better than a mediocre drama. Like,
that's very true.
Drama, a drama has to be good to be watchable. Like, it can't be okay. But a horror movie can be
you don't think, well, this is there's no like, oh, this is a really bad drama, let's have fun watching this. It's just, no, let's just avoid it. But,
yeah. And I mean, really, the only movies I go see in the theater are generally horror movies. It's not really by choice. It's just, if I keep my ticket stubs and I look at them at the end of the year, it's just all horror movies. And I'm just what I'm inclined to watch. So.
Recent horror movies that you're into?
Like recent ones?
Within like the last, 5 years or so.
I mean, I really liked Mandy, though I guess that's not quite a horror movie. It's like something else. But I think that's why I liked it so much, because I was just like, they just completely went off the deep end with just making something. And it looks great, and Nicolas Cage is great. And I thought Hereditary was pretty good. I mean, I didn't think it was the greatest movie ever, but I enjoyed watching it. And I saw Us. That was pretty good, though it's completely stupid. The plot doesn't make any sense. But it's still, like, I enjoyed it. But
I really liked it,
yeah.
It's kind of a movie if you just kind of go with, instead of trying to think too much about why it's
almost like a dream logic. The whole thing is like dream logic. It doesn't really make any sense, but it works. But I feel like, he has so much clout now that he could get away with it. But I feel like a lot of directors tried to do something like that. People be ripping it apart and saying, this plot, here's all the plot holes in this. Though I guess I'm sure people are doing that anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, that, what else? I saw like the Halloween movie Border. The Border isn't really a horror movie, but it's kind of a horror movie. Border was really great.
I've seen that.
Yeah, it's the less you know about it, the better it is. Like it's basically like if you look at the trailer, it's just like a weird trailer, and like there's these weird looking people, and they're hanging out. And if I talk too much about it, I'll probably spoil the movie. So
sure, yeah.
But yeah, it definitely is. Definitely worth seeing. It's kind of like it's definitely like an art movie meets like a genre movie. But there's definitely moments in that movie that are just like what the fuck moments, where it's just like, whoa, you went really, really far. So I definitely recommend it.
All right, check that out. But I do want to say, you mentioned Assassinaut being low budget and everything, but I think it looks very good. It looks like it has high production values for the level of movie it is. The effects look good. It's shot really well. The outer space stuff looks great. I was really into it. It was very cool.
Yeah, compared to our other movies, it was like a huge budget, because the Taint was like $5,000 and Science Team, which Michelle and I worked on together. That was like $15,000 movie. So this, in comparison, like for us, it was like a huge budget. So I think that's why we went so crazy with all the effects and like the locations, and because to us it was like having $1 million. We're like, we're like, oh, there's no limits to what we can do. But I think, basically in Hollywood terms, our budget is like a ghost movie budget, which is like 2 people in a house. That's normally what you do with our budget. But instead it's like every scene is on location. There's gore, there's kids, there's all of this like no like professional producer in Hollywood do that. Could they be like, you can't make that movie, with that amount of money. So I think, what we did was, and also we kind of know how to work with limitations pretty well coming from no budget stuff. I think it's why it's important. I think for directors that are starting out, I think it's really important for them to make movies on their own with very little money, because you learn how to problem solve really well. Because the problem solving on a no budget movie is basically the same as a movie with a budget. It's just there's no possibility of throwing money at anything. So you kind of learn how to change what you're working on and like alter the script as you're working. For instance, like on Science Team, or not Science Team, but Assassinaut, we really wanted like them to be wearing spacesuits with like helmets and like, all that crazy stuff. But it's like, there's like a couple practical reasons. One, we were shooting in the summer in the South, and people probably would have died wearing these giant suits. And then also we didn't want it to be cheesy. So like we didn't have enough money. We didn't have enough time to make the suits fast enough before the shoot started. So we had to kind of come up with an aesthetic for the movie that worked with what we didn't have. So I think, that's sort of what you learn over time is because if you make like with a costume that's never seen in the movie, if it looks stupid, your movie's stupid. So, you got to make those things work. Or people will just look at your movie and I think initially we wanted to maybe do something that was more of like a hodgepodge aesthetic where we took like found objects and we like made the costumes kind of like almost like Turbo Kid. But the DP and I, Cooney, we saw the trailer for Turbo Kid because it's like right before our movie we started filming. And we were like, oh well, we can't do that. Because they had just done it. So we were like, all right, well, it can't look like that. So the colors of the movie changed and like, the way we shot it was a little bit different. And I think also important to note is this movie was filmed before like Stranger Things even was released or the trailer.
Right.
So in no way is there like are we making a response to like that movie or I mean that show?
Show, yeah.
There's been a lot of darker kids things that have come out over the years, like
Summer of '84. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, though luckily I think our movie is something completely different from those movies. It has a very different, very different tone than those movies.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, because I actually like all those movies, so for people who are into those movies, it's still similar in its own way, but it's unique in its own way too. Yeah.
And I do. I mean, I like Stranger Things. I'm not one of those people that thinks it's bad, but if I had known, if I had seen the trailer like right before we did it, I may have not done it. It's one of the things.
Right, I understand.
Like, oh, they did it. No, I don't think we did. Ours is quite of an homage to like the '80s. It's sort of its own weird.
Yeah, it's a little over the top with that, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I still like it too. I can joke about, it's like Captain Marvel. It's just nonstop '90s references, but whatever. It's fine. Where can you follow yourself or Assassinaut online?
Probably, I think the best place for now is probably our Facebook page, which is just like facebook.com/Assassinaut. Or if you just look up Assassinaut, which is like assassin and then AUT, if people don't know. Which basically the title was like I wanted to have like an exploitation title with like a poster.
Uh-huh.
It was like, oh, there's like a mutating astronaut on the cover. And then it says that title. I was like, oh yeah, that's like a good,
I think it's a great title myself.
Yeah. But our movie kind of changed. The originally like the villain was supposed to be an astronaut in like an astronaut suit with the face is like melting and it's all like that. But that we lost that, but the title remained. And I think it was for the best too. I think it's a little more disturbing what happens in the movie because it's not quite as silly as what the original was. So.
I really dug it. And so I know right now you want people to see Assassinaut when they can and eventually for that to get out, but do you have anything in the works?
There's some ideas I'm working on, but I have not started production on anything. I'm not like racing to start a new movie. This one, took so long and it was like super hard. So I'm like, I don't want to say I'm hesitant to do something else, but I'm definitely kind of taking a bit of a break. But I've been working on some other projects in New York, like some TV shows and things like that.
Cool.
But I'm definitely going to do something again at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's cool to have you on. It was cool to meet you. I met you briefly at Buff at the I believe it was a karaoke night.
Yeah.
Michael Epstein introduced us. Very good guy. And so it was great to have him. I really dug Assassinaut and I hope people find it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Legally find it, at a festival or when it comes out there, because that is something I don't want to joke about, but it is something very negative, and especially for independent movies.
Yeah, I mean it's I mean I don't really complain about it just because it's like it's inevitable that we'll download your movie, but I do think especially like. Because, I mean, the system is definitely rigged to people that, have access to these networks or distribution companies and things. And, like, those companies can handle piracy. Like, they can still make their movies profitable. But independent filmmakers are just, they're screwed if you download their movies. But, I mean, at the same time, it's like, people are going to do it, and I don't think, I'm not like, I don't think it necessarily makes someone a bad person, because if you don't have a lot of money to spend on content, it's like, if it's the only way you can watch the movie, I say it's fine. But if you really, really love a movie, though, like if you love a movie and you've never contributed to the filmmaker in any way, that sucks. Like, it's like buy a T-shirt or buy merch if you don't actually need the DVD or whatever. Because, like, I think a lot of people, like, eventually give up in their career. Like, it happens a lot, I think. Or, and I mean, it's like, I think if you get into filmmaking, it's like maybe probably the best, it's not the best idea to want to make a lot of money. It probably shouldn't be your motivation. I don't think it is for most filmmakers, honestly. I don't think, I don't meet very many that are like, I just want to make a lot of money.
Right.
I can't even think of, I honestly can't even think of one that I've ever met that was their underlying, like, I've met crew people that they don't care at all about what they're working on. And it's kind of, that's, disconcerting. But, yeah, I mean, I think everybody, you got to do it. You got to do it to do it. And, if you can support independent filmmakers, I think you should, for sure. But, people need to do what they need to do. So.
Well, again, very, very cool to have you on. And I really dug Assassinaut. And I'm also a big fan of the Taint. So I was glad to have you on.
Thank you.
And I got to tell you in person, well, it's sort of in person, about the T-shirt story. So I've said it many times on the show, but apparently it wasn't the first. So now I
love that
feel
shirt,
kind of bummed about it. It is pretty sweet, yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually, because we were doing a video of what, I don't know what the hell we were talking about, but it's caught on video of me just looking down, and it's like, oh, what the hell's on this shirt?
It is a great moment.
Yeah. So you got to be careful with this, man. Got to be careful.
Yeah, I didn't get kicked out anyway. So. But I got to talk to you, and it'll be cool to have you back sometime.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm Benjamin Roberts, director of A Plague So Pleasant, and you're listening to Without Your Head podcast.